All right. We're here. Sorry about the brief delay. For some reason, I went to fill up my water and the stream decided to die. So that was excellent. All right. Well, thanks to those of you who are here so far. We've got extra more, Roxy, Sophie, and I think we saw Tenchi as well. All right. Well, again, sorry about the delay. We're all ready to go. So thanks for coming along. We've got some red hot D&D questions coming your way today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Luke. I am a professional dungeon master, and I run a company called Dungeon Master for Hire, which is located in Melbourne, Australia. And we are professional DMs who have a multitude of talents: voice actors, educators, professional people with TV experience, production experience, things like that. And we kind of just run D&D for people who are interested. Today I'm going to just do a bit of fun. I've got a day off, so I run a bit of a stream on Fridays. Well, the second Friday in a row, where I take live D&D questions from people in the audience, people watching, or as well as some pre-submitted questions that people have sent me. Usually my dear loyal viewers. So if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the follow the stream, so you'll know when I go live. It does help me and gives me a bit of motivation to keep doing this. And as always, if you've got any questions, jump in the chat, let me know. I'll be answering questions, the pre-written questions, as well as the stuff that you've submitted early. Oh, hello Sam. Thank you for joining. Thanks for the follow. All right, so what have I been up to? It's been good. It's been a fairly quiet week. I've only had 2 games this week so far, which is odd for me. Tuesday I had a Ravenloft Mist Hunters game, which is a sort of an ongoing campaign, Adventurers League campaign, which is horror based and set in the domains of Ravenloft, which is really fun. Really liking it. And on Thursday last night I had a late night stream of Waterdeep Dragon Heist, which is very fun. I can't really talk much about things that happen because a lot of my players do watch the stream, so I can't really talk about a lot of it, but it's very fun. I love both games. I'm really enjoying them, and I'm really getting a kick out of the different styles that have to accommodate for. So I've got very different styles of adventures. Some are very fast-paced, slow-paced, things like that. Outside of that, I've just put my DM's Guild adventure, The Phantom Pursuit. I've just put it on. It's the 1-year anniversary of its release yesterday. It's an Adventurers League organised play adventure that it's now for free, which I've put up for anyone to get if you've got a DM's Guild account, which is a fantastic resource for anyone who's a budding DM or just wants to read things. I'll just pop the link in the chat for you. Just give me 1 second. There's a couple of copies left if anyone's interested. If you would like to grab it. It's a fun little adventure. I spent a lot of time on it a couple of years ago for a convention in January of 2020. I basically took what I think I wanted to see an adventure style. I wanted to see the movie Speed in D&D. So what I did was I eventually built a wagon that couldn't stop moving for various reasons, and you need to travel through a forest for over many days without stopping. That's the basics of it, and it was kind of fun. It's like a bit of a bottle episode, but on a wagon. So it's fun. I really got a kick out of putting it together. And if you want to have it, you can go and get a copy for free, read it, see how the organized play movie style sort of functions, and have a look at it. All right. Well, actually, one other thing I've been doing. I got it the other day. I bought a sample set of cantrip candles. The starter pack here. So Cantrip Candles, for those of you not aware, are a company based in, I believe, California. And they do scents for candles for D&D or role-playing games. So they'll have a tavern scent or a dungeon scent or a forest scent. And I got like a little bit of a set from Meeples and Dragons, which was good. And I've kind of having fun just sort of having a whiff of that. Haven't used them yet, but I'm looking forward to it. All right, what's everyone else got going on? Everyone's got all kinds of fun things happening in their lives. We're out of mask territory in Melbourne, which is nice. But look, let's not get into that. Let's get into some questions. So I'll go through the first question that we've had submitted from one of our great viewers. If you've got any questions of your own, just chuck them in the chat, and I'll be happy to take a swing at them. Something simple, could be about pro DMing, your home game, any advice you need as a player or as a dungeon master, or just anything really. Don't ask me my favorite color though, because I don't have one. That link doesn't work. That's okay. That's all right. Thank you, Sam. If you just go to my Twitter, I'll just link that now. You can go and get it from there. That's my fault there. All right, well, let's get into it. So, question 1. Well, the first question of today from Sam Marley Jarrett. Thanks for popping in. What is your favorite class to play when you yourself play as a character? So, as I mentioned last week, I don't play D&D very much. In fact, I'm only in one. Well, I was going to say one active game. I say that, but I haven't played it since May because of various lockdowns. But I have a few active characters that I like, but my favorite class is Wizard. Wizards they're full of flavor. They've got a huge toolbox and spell kits, and spells are I think kind of the real fun of D&D is, because you can mess with reality and stuff like that. I mean, no offense to fighters and stuff, but it's swords and shields, you know. You can only do so much, but with Wizards, you've got a whole reality bending toolkit at your disposal where you can really play with stuff. And as a DM, I really enjoy using magic to just change things and really just experiment. So I like to play as a wizard, except for the hit point situation, which is not so fun. Do any of you have any? Who's your favorite class anyway? Sam is playing as Sam is 2 characters in my games. Sam is in 2 campaigns. Sam plays as a Tabaxi rogue in one, which has been very interesting. And Sam also plays as a sorcerer, a Ladrin sorcerer. I believe it's a Ladrin sorcerer. And hello Kinks. We've got Roxy Paladin number 1. Paladins, of course, are Roxas. I've actually tried a Paladin for the first time a little while ago. Paladins really gave me a bit of trouble, because I always seen them as goody-goodies who needed to be goody-goodies and nothing else could steer them away. But I found a nice little niche that I really enjoyed, is playing a Paladin who was so sort of naive to the point of being sheltered. And basically, if anyone's seen the US TV show What We Do in the Shadows, the remake of not a remake, a kind of a what do you call it? Sort of a adaptation. That's the word of the New Zealand movie. There's a character called Colin Robertson who's just this energy vampire who sucks people. So rather than blood, sucks like emotional energy from people. And I kind of just got inspired by him and made a Paladin who was so boring and dry. He'd never left the city he was in. He was an Oath of the Crown Paladin, so he'd never left the city because he was a city guard, and he owned a cactus, and he didn't really know how to function outside of that. So that was interesting. Haven't got any more people showing up. Thanks for everyone coming in. All right. Has anyone got any questions? Kinks, of course, played a rogue in the very first game and then died in the second session. All right, let's go on to our next question here. What have we got? This one's from Kinks. Hey, what is the minimum age that you would suggest for introducing D&D to someone, and what would be a suggested session length for them? It's a good question. I do run a lot of D&D for kids. I have a couple of ongoing kids games, one online, one in person. I think the age groups are 10 or 11. They're sort of the age groups that they're at. Usually just a group of boys who want to just go and kill stuff. They're good fun. Kids games are very different. You need to be a lot more loose with the rules, and I think probably one of the strongest things about D&D and D&D gets a lot of crap. People give it a lot of shit because it's so dense. The rules are so dense and so hard. But the one thing I love about it is it plays like a video game, in that you don't need to know the rules to play it. The Dungeon Master does almost all the heavy lifting for you, especially if you're new, and the DM just does all the work and just narrates the action, so they can disregard rules, they can fudge rules whenever they want. What I find with a lot of other RPGs is that they do rely heavily on player collaboration and improvisation. So you will ask a player to come up with a reason for why something they did failed, or invent a contact that they have. And I feel like a lot of new players don't really... It's hard to get used to that kind of thing. I like it. It's fun getting people to prompt stuff, and some players do love it, but a lot of them are not used to it. So with D&D, it's great because everything's there, and the DM can just do all the lifting for them, which makes it, I think, a very good RPG for kids. There is a certain probably an age limit based on violence and things like that. There is obviously an age limit where you can't be describing cutting off goblins' heads and stuff like that. Probably the lowest I would recommend for D&D would be about 8 or 9 years old. The reason I say that is because there are other versions of RPGs which are designed for lower age groups that are still D&D fantasy style, but they are much easier to understand. They usually use just D6s, but they're still a lot of fun. You get special powers, but it's much easier to digest. My recommended one is one called Hero Kids, which I believe is written by an Australian author. Hero Kids is a good one. I've never run it, but I've used some of the resources and some of the ideas and adventures behind it that make it kind of a bit more... It's got some good tips for running D&D for kids, and sort of ideas on how to do that. So that's what I'd recommend. As far as session length, again, depends on age. An hour, probably an hour for kids. Give them a single fight, give them a job, give them a fight, give them some chatter, and then just exploring. You can get something done in about an hour or so. Keep the group size small for kids, because if they're not talking, if they're not interacting with the Dungeon Master, they're going to get bored. You could go maybe 4 kids, I think. Probably the best way to do it. 4 kids, an hour and a bit. Give them some dice to fiddle with while they play. Give them stuff to interact with. But yeah, Hero Kids is the way to go. It's a good one. It's nice and simple. It might be a bit jarring for those of you if you only played D&D, but it's good. All right, have we got any new people hanging out here? Got Pineapple the Fruit, excellent, and extra more. All right, thanks for all coming in. Don't forget to follow the stream. That would help me. It helps me for all this Twitch stuff, which I'm having a bit of a red hot go at. All right, if you've got any questions, feel free to jump in the chat. Let me know. Anything comes up that you would like me to elaborate on. I am now realizing I'm speaking very quickly. All right, let's go to our next question here. What are high CR good creatures to be allies with the party? And this is from Platypologist. Platypologist is from the Matthew Perkins DM stream. Good friend of mine, Matthew Perkins, who is a DM as well, who makes a great YouTube video series. I think he's streaming Dark Souls at the moment. Usually he's here slagging me off. So good high CR good creatures to be allies with the party. So when you refer to allies, hopefully Platypologist is not asking for DMPCs, someone who tags along with the party on an ongoing basis and assists them with spells and things like that. So hopefully it's no one like that, because it's a whole other kettle of fish we're not going to get into. But in terms of high CR, I don't really understand why they need to be high CR. They just need power. And power comes in a few different forms in D&D. Of course, comes in difficulty, hit points, abilities, spells, things like that. But it also comes in that soft power, powers that kings have or powers that lords have. And you can really set someone to be powerful despite them being a noble with 10 hit points, where people won't hurt them or won't cross them because they know how much soft power they actually have. So it's a tough question. I mean, you also don't want a high CR party ally that's going to outshine people. I find that the players are the characters are the heroes, so you don't want them to be overshadowed by someone who swoops in with their magic spells and saves the day all the time. So, if you're going down that route, high CR, good creatures to be allies. I mean, you've got your gods, you've got your angels, things like that. It depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for utility, you want them to help you with things. Or it sounds like if you want CR, that's what you're after. I mean, a mage is always a good one because they can't really do things on their own, so that they have a reason to ally with the party. And they also have very weird requests that could be useful. An archmage as well, again, but they're a bit more powerful. A mage is a good place to start, I think. As long as they take the position that, right, well, you're going to go do all this work, and I'm just going to stay here and do my own thing, and you can go over there and you can do that. Probably a good place to start. Trying to think if there's any others. I mean, what have we got? Let's go on. Why don't we go over to D&D Beyond and have a bit of a squiz? Alright, I'll answer this question for Roxy first. How big of a role do you think is good to have for a warlock's patron? Or does it generally depend on character? I've always struggled with warlock patrons, to be honest. I do find they can be difficult to implement because the power that patrons gift is, as written, free. It doesn't require the patron to do... it doesn't require the character to do much. You've talked about ways where the patron will strip power if the character doesn't do what they say, things like that. But it is sort of a one-way street in a lot of ways. I've tried multiple times to make a warlock patron be like good and sort of integrated into the adventure, but it's tough. It is tough to do. Because it's like typically it's like a warlock patron is just going to corrupt the character and make them do horrible things. That's the general way people go that route. Or it sits like a little angel on the shoulder, like a little angel and devil on the shoulder, telling them, giving them advice, which the character will probably disregard anyway, or the player rather. It might depend on the patron as well, and how well you can work with it. I mean, let's go and take a look at the different patrons. Let's get my little browser screen up here. If it decides to load today. Just give me a second. Alright, back to the main page here. There we go. Alright, let's go look at our sources here. So our warlock patrons. Let's go to our warlock patrons. We'll do a quick breakdown, why not? Alright, so we've got the Archfey here, which is a Fey creature. This, of course, ties into the very recent Wild Beyond the Witchlight adventure. So Fey... It says here they hold secrets that were forgotten before the mortal races were born. They're very weird. They're very hard to interpret. Anyone who's dealt with Fae before, they're a bit strange. They've got different goals, which may not even be related to conquest or any kind of power. It probably does depend on... Yeah, it really is a tough one. The Archfey can't just be weird. The Celestial... Never seen a Celestial in a while. Alright, this is probably not going anywhere. In terms of the Warlock Patron, I mean, I've really struggled to incorporate them, unless you have a very small group where you can kind of make it a key function. That being said, I do have some new stuff in the works, which I can't really talk about, with a particular Warlock, which I'm now playing around with, which has been kind of fun. Actually, no, they're already here. So Kinks is playing as a Warlock currently in a Dragon Heist game. And we have, well, hopefully this other person's not going to tune. We have made their patron, Kinks' patron, be an enemy of a druid in the party who imprisoned that patron a while ago, and has now been released and suddenly is now gathering followers in the form of this other warlock. So that's interesting, and we're still developing that. It hasn't manifested that much at the moment, but I've got a lot of stuff in the background that I'm working on. And it's my first real attempt to make a patron be something big or something important, rather than just being a little voice in the ear. So I guess we'll see. Thank you for the question, Roxy. Alright, so back to this other question. I'm just waffling, aren't I? High CR, good creatures to be allies with the party. Vigil or Travis? Yep. No, I figured out who you were. I'm using the Twitch names just for, yeah, it's just, why not? So high CR, good creatures to be allies. I mean, let's go and have a look at this again. Why not? Let's go and pull up the old CR list. Monster list. All right, what have we got? So you're probably going to want high CR. Looking about, it depends. Probably 10 to 12 here. We'll filter that down. So what we've got. Okay, we're not going to want. Yeah, let's go humanoid. This is going to be strange otherwise. Alright, Archdruid. Archdruid could be useful. Again, Archmage, like I said before. To see if anything's jumping out at me here. There's not a lot of CR10 creatures here. It's quite low. I'm very surprised. A Warlord might be nice. Could be interesting. Yeah, maybe the CR's a little bit higher. Let's go down to 6. You can pull characters out of, all sorts of things here. Your Artist Simba, who I never used. Assassins. I think CR is not really a good place to create an ally, unless they're going into an adventuring party and helping out. And hopefully that helps, Platy. I'm not sure if it will, but yeah, think about the kinds of power that a character would have, that an ally would have, and how you could use it mechanically. Fill the gap that is needed. So if you don't have put a cleric in if you don't have a healing, put a wizard in if you don't have spellcasting, and all that kind of stuff. Just fill a gap if it's a party ally. Fill in a gap if it's an NPC ally. Find the kind of power that you need, and then put that in. All right, Kinks. How or why did you become interested in or involved with D&D? My origin story. Well, I have a very short origin story. I've only been playing D&D for about 6 years since the new edition came out. I never really touched it before then. I kind of dabbled with RPGs, but never really found I got much out of it. I never really enjoyed it. I went to a few games. I went to a Pathfinder game, organized play game once, many years ago. And one of my friends tried to teach me, I think it was 4th edition, I'm not really sure. We spent 2 hours making a character, and then an hour playing, and then it was it. And I was kind of like, this is kind of, it was fun, but I didn't understand, and it was kind of a bit, it felt a bit underwhelming because I would spend a lot of time making a character to play it once and never touch it again. So I dabbled a bit. I'd played Fiasco. I'd run a game of Fiasco. I'd run a game of Baron Munchausen's, and I found it was requiring a lot of theatrical improv. The RPGs in particular, so you need to be witty and have bigger with words and all that stuff. And I was like, is this what RPGs are? I didn't really get it. But I went to PAX one year. It might have been the second PAX Australia. And they had the D&D starter set for sale, which I have somewhere. I think I got rid of the box. Anyway, the D&D starter kit, Lost Mines of Fandelwa. I had that available. And then I was like, it was $20. And I was like, oh, I'll just get that. That sounds good. $25. I was like, I'll go buy that. This will give me a chance. So I started reading it, learning the rules, things like that. This is back when there was no online resources for D&D. Like, it's exploded in the last few years. I found one stream of Wizards of the Coast playing the starter set adventure. And I was just like, I don't know how to do this. And so I started watching the videos, saw how the game sort of flowed. Got the hang of it. I did so much research before I ran my first game, which was for my friends. I bought some more dice. I even used XP. It's the only game I used XP in. I never used it after the second session. And I ran a game at home for my friends. Maybe like 4 of us. And 4 of them. It was 3 of my friends and my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife. Wait. Fiance. Maybe she was fiance then. Might have been 6 years. Anyway, that went really well. It was fun. Yeah, rip XP. XP is shit. No one wants to do maths. You already do enough maths playing the game. XP sucks. Don't tell it. Don't say it on the internet though. People get mad. Yeah, so I ran a game, and because I mean, not to toot my own horn, as a nerd, video games and all that stuff, I do still have a very outgoing personality, and I've always had fun doing voices and entertaining people and being silly and stuff. So it really seemed to hit a few kind of things that I liked doing. So entertaining and storytelling and coming up and doing improvisation and making jokes, and it all really seemed to click, and I really got a kick out of it. So I just did it more and more, and I was running a few games, a game every 2 months or something, and then I started getting involved in running games for my family, and running games with friends, and getting involved in the wider community. And now I'm at like 120 games a year. Whew. So that's where I am. That's my origin story. And then eventually I was running so many games that I didn't have time to do anymore, and someone offered to pay me to do it. A friend of mine offered me to pay me, and I said sure. And I thought, maybe there's something to this. So I made a website, and here we are now, almost 4 years later. All right. Thank you for the question. Has anyone else got a good origin story that's not as long as mine? Just XP. I don't know why anyone used it. I mean, at least not the 5th edition. It made sense in the previous editions. From what I'm aware, it was based on gold. So you needed to accumulate gold to get levels. But it's just pointless, really. I did use it once semi-recently, like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. That good old fun bag of beans. It created a mummy pyramid. So there's one chance where out of the bag of beans a pyramid gets created, and there's a mummy lord inside, which is a super dangerous creature. And they managed to beat it, surprisingly, and it had such a high XP value. I was like, oh, I already killed that thing, so well, I guess you guys level up right now. And they're like, what? Because I didn't think they were going to win. I thought they were going to die. Mummy lords are ridiculous. Next thing to get rid of, counting 10d8s. I don't know about that. I do like rolling lots of dice at once. I enjoy it. I ran a game on the weekend with, which was one of the first in-person games I've run back, maybe 3rd or 4th game. And you needed to roll 10d8s, and all the players were rolling 10d8s because they were playing as white dragons. So they were rolling cold breath weapons and things like that. And while it does suck to count out dice, I don't think anyone could dispute the fact that rolling 10d8 is a lot of fun. Highly recommend if you want to roll lots of dice, be at the end, because it's awesome. All right, got any new people running around? Yep. Okay. All right, let's kick on to our other question. I think we've got 6 today. Thank you for the questions so far. Very helpful. Another one from Kinks. What advice would you give to players to help them separate character emotions from player emotions while still keeping immersed in the game? I mean, it's tough. I mean, there's lots of layers to that. A lot to unwrap in that question. There's a lot of reasons why people play D&D. It's not one thing for everybody. It's many things to many people. Some people play it to immerse themselves and really get, inhabit a character, or to experiment or express themselves. Some people just want to be silly and don't really care about what happens at the table, whereas some people get very invested in what's happening at the table. I think my personal style is what's known, what I've heard referred to as a beer and pretzel style game, where it's very light-hearted and silly, and we chuck dice and we make jokes, but we do have bits of seriousness involved. So for players who have trouble separating character emotions from player emotions, well, I would suggest if you're having trouble separating your feelings from your character's feelings, that's probably a place to start. Maybe understand that the players, in a lot of cases, especially players you've played with on a regular basis, are probably not there to upset you or to hurt your feelings. May not be true in one-offs and things like that with players you don't know, but if a player's been there playing with you for a while, their intention is probably not to upset you or bother you, because they're there to have fun just like you. Ultimately, everyone's there to have a good time. But again, D&D is many things to many people. Some people are there for, sort of heartfelt things. Some people are there just to kill stuff. Some people are there to cause trouble. So that's kind of one of the main things where groups fall apart is that different players are there for different things and they clash. So one person wants to negotiate all the time, one person wants to kill everything, and that becomes a problem later on. But I guess the real thing is if you're having strong emotions during your game and you're really struggling to kind of if you're frustrated during the game, the place to probably start is just realize that people probably aren't doing it on purpose. Other players, I presume this is other players affecting your emotions in the game. And if I guess particularly when like characters die, things like that, is to learn. It is just a game in the end, and everyone's there to enjoy themselves. The DM will usually hopefully look after you. I mean, Kinks, you're in the chat. I mean, is there anything you could elaborate on to kind of help me steer me in the right direction? Is there a particular situation that you could maybe refer to? Anonymized, of course. Kinks, of course, has been playing D&D for a little bit, for about a year with me now, but for the first time we played in person last week, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, character emotions from player emotions. It's not something I struggle with. But it's a very, very tough question that probably can't be answered off the cuff. I suppose it depends what emotion too. If you're angry, if you as a player are upset or annoyed at something, and you can't communicate that as your character, it's probably best just to maybe, if you're online, maybe just be quiet, just deal with it privately if you need to, or message someone if you need to discuss, or if you're upset about something. Okay, sure, generally. I guess probably the best thing is to probably just focus yourself more on your character and less on you. If it does become a point where you find it's hard to separate, if it's a negative emotion, probably should address that in something that's not D&D. I mean that no offense. I just mean that it's if you're getting worked up at anything, if it's a D&D, if it's a video game, if it's a crossword puzzle, if it's trying to cook, like if you're getting worked up over something that you probably shouldn't be, it's probably something bigger. It's probably a bigger issue there. Not saying you have an issue, Kinks. I'm just saying that it's a tough one. All right. Hopefully that helps. Have we got any new people coming in here? No. Some people. Thanks for everyone who's sticking around. All the bots who are here. All right. Let's. If there's anything you want to bounce off on that, let me know. All right. Next question from Sam Marley Jarrett again. When creating or leveling my character, should I min-max my character or make unusual choices, and why? Again, back to our previous question. D&D is many things to many people. Some people are there for optimization. Some people are there just to make interesting choices. I will not recommend one or the other. I think they are both very valid choices. I personally like making unusual choices that are still mechanically sound. So I'm not going to make a wizard who takes the grappling feat, for example. But I will make choices that I find interesting. I always recommend that because it is your enjoyment. If you enjoy min-maxing, min-max. If you enjoy doing weird stuff, do weird stuff. Of course, it does depend on your group. There's nothing worse than when you are playing a very tactical campaign where everyone needs to be optimized to survive, say as like a dungeon crawl, and your character is, called Yeetmaster 5000, and he's a gnome barbarian, and he carries a great axe, even though he can't even wield it effectively. But he's going to do it anyway. Like that kind of stuff. It might be a bad fit for your group. So Sam, I was thinking of things more like forgetful wizards when they're less likely to be useful characters to the group, but fun characters to play. Hello, Lion of Kumara. Am I winning? I mean, it depends what you define as winning. I'm having a good time. People ask me lots of interesting questions about D&D. Feel free to chime in if you wish. So, forgetful wizards. Forgetful wizards when they're less likely to be useful characters to the group. I mean, there will be a point where if your character is that useless that they won't ask your character to stick around if you are struggling that bad. But I think a forgetful wizard, as comic relief or fits and starts, is fun to do. Have a character who makes dumb jokes. I've made dumb characters who make dumb decisions, but I don't do it all the time. For example, in low intelligence characters who are a common trope, people charge in and like I'm just going to run in and do dumb stuff all the time. It's like, yeah, but you made it this far as a person. You wouldn't be jumping off cliffs, because you have 8 intelligence. Like again, 8 intelligence is not that dumb. It's not great, but it's not that smart. It's not that dumb. You've got some self-preservation. You've got some things to you that do make sense. That you should really focus on what your character would actually do, and not just what you think is interesting as well. So there's a balance. There's a balance to be struck there, where a character is still useful, but especially in combat, you can't really be doing. I think in combat you've got to be doing not optimal, but doing. You can't be standing there screaming instead of attacking or casting spells. That's where you have to really, I guess, play. But outside of the game, as long as you're not annoying people or actively harming them, I don't think people will really mind as a general rule. I think that's. Hope that helps. But yeah, I love making weird. I make characters who are very, not disruptive, but annoying. Not annoying. Yeah, they're probably annoying. I make characters as a player who are strange, who maybe not forgetful, but they're a bit odd. They don't worry about other people. All right, I think we've got one more question here. It's a bit of a short stream today. Don't forget, if you've got any questions besides "Are you winning, son?" which is a good question, let me know. And don't forget to follow the stream if you're not already. That helps me out. What is the most creative use of wild shape you've seen? One thing immediately jumped to mind as soon as I read that. I ran a game of Tomb of Annihilation for a bunch of friends of mine many moons ago. It's a very fun adventure, by the way, if you love a hex crawl. And one of the characters, the druid, was swallowed by a giant snake. Or a toad. I can't remember. It's a snake or a toad. It was one or the other. Doesn't matter. Which is I believe, a huge creature. So, swallowed, started to take acid damage in the stomach of this snake. I mean, you can tell what's going to happen here. He immediately, on his next turn, morphed into a creature of the same size using wild shape. So what we essentially had here was me trying to figure out how much damage this would do if it didn't kill the creature outright, or whether it would hurt both of them. I think I ruled it that the snake died immediately. But then there was a bunch of damage taken, like crush damage or bludgeoning damage as the druid was like expanding outwards rapidly, taking damage from a snake. So I think that was probably the most creative one, is using it to explode someone. That's probably the most creative one I think I've seen. Lion of Kumara, I've asked a few other DMs this. Across all the games you've run, how often have you experienced players actually using the crafting rules to scribe scrolls for themselves or others to cast from? That's a good question. Never is the way to put it. I've even, because it's expensive, I think it's probably the main thing, which as it should be. Even though I for my scroll, my personal house rule for scrolls is I don't care who you are when you try to use them. It doesn't need to be on your spell list. It doesn't even need to be. You don't even need to be a spellcaster to cast it. I try to implement a rule where you need to roll a check to do it if it's not on your spell list, but I usually forget. I treat them as kind of potions sometimes, scribing scrolls, and even despite all these allowances, letting anyone cast, they could go and prepare spells, make stuff, hand them out like candy. No one uses it because I think the cost is the biggest problem. It's 50 gold per, not 50 gold per level, 25 gold per level, I think. And I think I run a lot of low-level games where money is tight and people just don't do it. That's probably why. I should probably look into that, I think. Because I do like having scrolls and random stuff, but it often just goes into the bottom of someone's bag and they forget about it and they never even use it again. Thank you for the question, that was a good one. I do like scrolls though, generally. There's probably the most famous one is the Wild Sheep Chase, the spell scroll of Speak with Animals, modified, which lets you talk to a sheep and go on all kinds of shenanigans later on. Alright. It's nice having all these people here on a Friday afternoon. Everyone else is probably working, but thank you for coming along anyway. Alright, let's go on to our next question here. I think this might be our last one. I would like to roleplay my characters more, but I find myself slipping into third person a lot. Do you have any tips on how I can keep my first person roleplaying so that it's more consistent? And that's from Kinks. Well, this is of course presuming that it sounds like you want to be more in first person, which is fine. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, then don't. I encourage people to engage with the game at their own comfort level. If you prefer third person, do it. It's easy for people. You don't have to do voices and stuff. But if you wish to get more into first person description, I find having a voice helps. Having an accent helps because it helps people differentiate when you're speaking as your character and as yourself. It doesn't have to be crazy over the top or anything. But you could, especially in the instance of online, it helps a lot. Whereas in person, there is of course the gesture, the talking out of character, hand on head thing. But in online, you could probably go with the having a voice is probably an accent is probably the easiest way to do that, because it makes you think of what you're saying because you're about to do a voice with it. It's probably the easiest advice I could give you. Even if it's just lowering the pitch just a little bit or the speed of your talking. So you could go from, this is my regular voice, but if I have a fighter, I would go, and this is my other voice. It's not crazy different. You just lower the pitch a little bit or increase the pitch and go from there. Another way to do it, probably the easiest way to do it, is if you're engaging with other characters, is to speak to them as their name, so as their character name. So you would grab their attention by speaking to them as their character name. So instead of just asking a question and throwing it to the group, speak to someone in particular as your character. You can do that in third person. You can just say, my character would like to speak to so and so, and that helps because that keeps you in playing as your character, not as yourself. Other than third person, describing your actions helps a lot too. So, if you say I want to cross the room, or I want to sit down, I want to do this, that helps you keep you invested in your character as well. But it can be hard when you're playing in big groups, which Kinks is. It can be hard to role play for an extended period because there's a lot of interruptions and there's a lot of time that needs to be you have less time with the DM. So, for example, in a 5-person game, 3 hours. What's that? We've got 100 and I can't even count. 180 minutes. People only get 30 minutes with the DM, maybe. If possible, 20 minutes. Over the entire 3 hours, that they get about 20 minutes interacting with the DM directly on a one-on-one basis, because is 5 other people. That's 100 odd minutes, and you got the DM narrating all the stuff and combat as well. You only get a very, very limited amount of time to actually communicate with the DM, which is difficult. So sometimes I do recommend smaller groups if you want to do a more roleplay immersive experience, because you can have longer conversations and people get more invested because they're not waiting for their turn to talk, which is an unfortunate downside of some games, is that people are just waiting for their turn to talk, which it's hard. It's a hard thing to accommodate for sometimes. Especially when you've got a lot of strong-headed people in the game who want to talk a lot, or someone who's very chatty, or people who are quiet. It can be difficult to get everyone enough table time. feel like I could write like a big article on all these questions today. There's some very in-depth ones. Thank you for submitting them. Really do like them. Hopefully they're thorough enough and you can extract some kind of gold nugget of not uselessness in there. Alright, do we have any other questions? No, we don't. Alright, well, unless anyone's got anything else in there, if you want some war stories, you want questions about modules, if you're a budding DM looking to get into the world of D&D, I recommend it. So hopefully that's why you're here. But again, thanks for coming along. I don't really have much else to go into, so I'll probably leave it here. Don't forget to please follow the stream if you're around. Thank you to all of you who did follow the stream so far. But feel free to submit more questions. They'll be up on the Twitter. There'll be a form if you want to submit questions, or maybe just come along to the next stream on a Friday. Say hello. It's always good to see some of you, even though I see you on a weekly basis or fortnightly basis. But I think I'll leave it here. So, going to go have some lunch, enjoy the rest of my day, and I hope you do too. Alright, bye everyone.